So let me share with you just a little bit. I'm going to sit down a second, walk through this. Have you ever seen the ground shake so much that you can see the dust rise?
Yes.
I've never seen it. This is a rare phenomenon that most human beings have never seen. And this is Mexicali's, the mountains near there. And we had a lot of folks out there that got to see this.
Wow.
Travelers from all over the world, you know, they're internationally there. And they're getting to see something that most people, 99.9% except for this lady Mary, that have never seen the ground shake and create dust. Now, they don't always have dust. This is the problem that we normally have with an earthquake. We shake up the rock up above and we got a little problem. We have to bring in little Tonka toys and move it. Well, the Tonka toys are kind of expensive, and you know, it takes a while to work with it. So when you start looking at the road, we kind of see that there's a problem. You notice the white lines are moved?
Wow.
Okay, this is what we call a strike-slip fault, like the San Andreas fault. And you notice that the white line is moved over to the right. Okay, now, whoop, I'm going to go back here. I went way too fast. The problem with this thing is when you borrow some equipment. Can you see that yellow line? We had to put the K-rails in there to kind of keep the people away. And notice the cracks in the road. And notice that the road is undulating. You know, that means it's going up and down. Okay, this is a real problem, especially when you go through areas that have a high water table like San Bernardino. Okay, and when we're looking at cracks like this, you don't drive your car across there, do you? No. This is a real problem. And cracks like this. This is what was going on in that area, and you know, we've got a little problem with liquefaction here in San Bernardino. The whole Coachella Valley has this kind of problem. And when you stand in there and you got your beer or whatever he's got, they're making jokes, but this is a real problem. And they're taking pictures. See that rolling?
Right.
That's not normal. You know. And the cracks along the waterway, it's really bad. And we have deep and wide cracks. They're not just little tiny things. Try driving your car across that. It's not going to happen. And so as we go through the desert and we see what this kind of problem is, think about it being up here in San Bernardino. We haven't had a good earthquake in San Bernardino since 1812. You know, that's a day or two. I wasn't here. I'm old, but not that old. And one of the problems is because the water comes up and it's polluted, you know, we have septic tanks. We don't have everything on the sewage system. And that means that we get into diseases. It doesn't take very long for the flies and mosquitoes to cause all kinds of problems. The horses don't like the dust. They have trouble breathing. You've got your other animals, all the animals, the human beings, we all got problems. And wherever we built sidewalks, brick, asphalt, whatever, it's messed up. So try to navigate your little cart or your vehicle or just walk. This is...
Sorry, I got a question. If we're in a liquefaction, are we more in danger of flooding or getting torn?
Depends upon the location. Valley College, where I happen to be at, we have a little bit of a problem with the San Jacinto Fault going right through the campus. You know, in 1920s, it was a nice little knoll in between Colton and San Bernardino, and they thought it was really nice to take that nice little knoll and put a little extension of the high schools and create Union College, and then they called it San Bernardino Union College, and now it's called San Bernardino Valley College. But we decided a number of years ago, because we had the fault going right through the administration building and right through the campus center where the students are at, that maybe we better take them down. Because have you ever seen a classroom cut in half? You know, which half do you want to be on? And the idea is the building is not going to go up and down, it's going to be split. So the residents of this area put a bond together, because that community college belongs to San Bernardino in this region. The residents paid a bond to replace buildings. And tilting is a problem in the areas, but when we talk about liquefaction, that's over here in Highland and down to Mount Vernon.
How big is the water table underneath?
It's huge. It's backing up against the mountains.
And that's because of there was a
The San Jacinto Fault acts as a barrier. The water from the watershed of the mountains, as it comes down into the valley, into the aquifer, comes up to the fault. And because we ground the rock into powder, we call it gouge. And the gouge causes the water to rise up to the surface. And if you go over to Loma Linda, just south of I-10, that used to be a swamp. In the 1850s, that was a swamp. We've built houses on it. I take my students down there. It's really neat. You get off at Waterman and you work your way over to Hunts Drive. And you go down Hunts Drive, and then you go into a little subdivision. And you have this beautiful linear park for about 3 or 4 miles going over to Martin Road. It's really pretty. They got houses on this side, they got houses on that side, and they got sidewalks going down both sides, and a nice little creek in the middle. It's so scenic, because that's the San Jacinto Fault. And their water is in that creek, because that's the water table level.
Is there any water under here where
You're up higher.
Oh, okay.
The water's
So
more.
it's not,
You're on alluvial fan material.
so we don't have to worry
Okay.
about getting flooded, just ripped.
No, you're in the wrong area to get ripped.
Oh,
Okay, now, here's a problem. In liquefaction area, down in the San Bernardino downtown area where the water's at, old buildings have a tendency to tilt. And it's not always just the old buildings. We're seeing a lot of buildings crumble. Some houses collapse. And we see that that house was a little higher before the earthquake. You notice that it's kind of like sunk? That's because it did sink. And going through the streets, the residential did have asphalt on there, but they don't look in too good shape right now. And this is what happens to buildings with stucco. They kind of crumple. And that's not really good. And here's a brand new house. Wow. That doesn't look good either. This reminds me of Highland recently with the floods and the mud, you know. And then you have a problem with power poles. They decide to fall over, and if they happen to hit a vehicle and they get gas and they go poof, you know, we got a fire. And that's the real problem with earthquakes. We create a fire, we have a gas line, we have people die, and the fire department is really involved in this. Here is what the subsidence happens when the water comes up. That was not water. This is now, because the water has risen, this is a problem. Right through the city streets.
is it broken water mains or what?
No, it's water that has
groundwater.
come up from the ground. And you knocked out a bridge. You notice how the bridge is cracked, it's moved to the right?
Yeah.
Then you see other areas where they were walking. I've stretched it a little bit so you can see it. That's the real problem. Now, are you prepared?
Second bridge.
No? Are you prepared for an earthquake at this moment? Okay, this is why I'm here. I was asked if I might be able to talk about earthquake preparedness. And one of your housing members happened to be over at Cal State Palm Desert with my campus last fall. And Steve, I don't remember Steve's last name, I apologize. He is a fantastic interpreter with signing. And I teach a little class over there for those juniors and seniors that are going to become school teachers. And I have to teach them in 10 weeks how to pass the state of California CSAT. That is the California Science Educational Testing. And I teach them oceanography, geology, meteorology, and astronomy in 10 weeks.
so they can pass. That's called a quick class.
Prep class.
Yes, it is. I'm preparing them to pass the exam, and I'm teaching them how to teach.